Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Honorable Ron Bartell from the Auditor's Office. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Thank you, Your Honor. You all bow with me. Father God, we come to you in prayer as we begin this session of Commissioners Court, and we thank you for the peace, favor, and protection that you have covered Tarrant County with, and pray that this continues. We recognize that these officials are placed here in office by you, and we ask that each of our leaders will be open to your leading them to accomplish your will. Lord, tonight we will hear our President speak on the state of our Union. The speech will likely focus on the state of our Union in worldly terms, but today I pray we consider the state of our Union in your terms. For Isaiah 60:12 says, "For the nation that refuses to serve you will be destroyed." And Matthew 22 says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." And Luke 6 says, "Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you." And finally, Galatians 6 says, "Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers." Against these standards, I fear that the state of our Union is not so sound. The tone of anger and division and hatred in our Union is not what you desire. While we cannot control others, we can control our actions. Romans 12 says, "As far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." So in the words of Joshua, "As for me and my household, we will follow the Lord, and it will be so even when others don't." So today I pray that we each remember that we're all your children, created in your image, every Tea Party member, every Democrat, every Republican, and every independent, and each is due respect and kindness, even if we disagree. Let it begin with us today so that the state of our Union might be stronger in your measure and that we may continue to prosper. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to you, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Ron, thank you very much for that this morning. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one announcement, and it relates to the purchasing department. Item J2, this is the sale of recycled paper. We have included that in your electronic court book. The revised court communications relates to that particular action. Also, court members, when we get to the section on the agenda on proclamations and resolutions, Commissioner Brooks has a special recognition that he would like to make at that time.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of January the 18th.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We do have some proclamations and resolutions. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have one to start off with.
To start off with, we've got some very special guests here this morning who are members of the Rose Bowl champion Texas Christian University Horned Frog football team. Go Frogs! There was a community-wide celebration at TCU this Sunday a week ago. They were not able to fit us into the program to present their proclamation. So I told their athletic director that if they wanted it, they had to come down here and pick it up. So, this morning, We have 4 members of the team with us, including Bart Johnson, number 6 wide receiver, who actually scored a touchdown in that game.
Y'all come on down.
Your Honor, would you read the proclamation into the record, please, even though we've already...
You bet. Whereas the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs began the 2010 football season ranked 6th in the AP poll, the best preseason ranking in TCU history, and whereas the Frogs beat 23rd ranked Oregon State 30-21 in the season opener at Cowboy Stadium, and 2 weeks later the Frogs dominated Baylor 45-10. And whereas in the middle of October, the number 1 ranked TCU defense allowed only 3 touchdowns over a span of 6 weeks in games against BYU, Air Force, UNLV, and the number 5 ranked Utah, affirming their claim to Mountain West supremacy. And whereas the TCU Horned Frogs were the first school from a non-automatic qualifying conference to play in a bowl championship series game in back-to-back seasons, and the first non-automatic qualifying team to play in the Rose Bowl. And whereas the Frogs earned their place in the Rose Bowl with an undefeated 12-0 season, finishing the regular season as one of 3 undefeated teams in the nation, and whereas TCU was challenged early by the University of Wisconsin but managed to hang on during the first quarter that featured a combined 24 points on the scoreboard, and whereas the Frogs held up against the Badgers' continued attack with many key third down stops and quarterback sacks, sealing their victory with a goal line stance against an attempted 2-point conversion in the closing minutes of the game, which they won with the score of 21-19. And whereas TCU celebrated its perfect 13-0 season in the name of all those small non-automatic qualifying schools that have been kept out of the bowl championship series. We're finally getting to the therefore, guys. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby congratulate the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs and commend them on finishing their storybook season ranked 2nd in the nation, and if we'd had a championship game, number 1, the highest ranking for the Horned Frogs since they won the national championship in 1938. We ratified this and presented it to y'all, or approved that last week. It's an honor to present this to y'all today and tell you made us proud. So. Would y'all like to say anything? Please.
Ask them to
Introduce yourselves and
Turn around to the mic.
tell us where you're from.
all right.
Go ahead, come on.
I'm Colin Jones, strong safety from Bridgeport, Texas. I'm Evan Frosch from Midland, Texas, play tight end. I'm Curtis Clay, receiver from Lockhart, Texas.
And I'm Bart Johnson, wide receiver from Brownwood, Texas. We just really appreciate all y'all done for us today. It's just really a neat time in the town of Fort Worth, and also very exciting at the University of TCU. And it's just really neat to see that all our hard work is really appreciated, because it really has paid off, and we've worked hard for 5 years. And the end with the Rose Bowl victory is just it's really neat. So we really appreciate all y'all do. Thank y'all.
Gentlemen, I would tell you we had a little wager with the county exec up in Dane County, which is Madison.
Yes, sir.
And he was wearing a TCU sweatshirt the first meeting in January. So, and he sent a very complimentary letter not only about the sportsmanship that happened during the game, but by the fans. I know we were outnumbered in fans up there, but not in noise. He was very complimentary of the strength of your team. Y'all had your defensive line had a pretty big offensive line on the other side of it, and y'all did great. And one of the things he brought up was in the history of the Rose Bowl, there's really only been 31 teams, 30 up until y'all, 31 different teams that have won the Rose Bowl, and that y'all were certainly the first non-automatic qualifying team. So we're very proud of you, and we look forward to watching y'all for many years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Your Honor, secondly, I ask ratification of the proclamation already presented in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second for ratification. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have a...
We have just a resolution of appreciation that's going to be presented Thursday night to Judge Brad Bradley in South Lake. I would move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, I'd like to call on Larry Wilson to come up and to present or to recognize our 2010 Leadership Development Program participants.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're here today to recognize the participants of the 2010 Leadership Development Program. And as you'll see on your page of notes there, they are required to spend an entire year in developing leadership skills, take 10 required courses, 2 elective courses. They research a department outside their own department, do a report and a presentation to their classmates. Some of the programs listed are communication skills, their DISC profile, harassment awareness, interviewing skills, selecting and achieving goals, and leadership assessment. And we will call each one up to have them be recognized. Bolin Burgefield from Elections. She is not with us today. Daniel Blanco from Information Technology. Mark Butler, Tax. Anthony Campbell, Tax. Anthony's not with us. Larry Christian, Precinct 4. Roosevelt Collins, Juvenile Services. David Dawson, Precinct 4.
You did pretty good.
Shirley Decker, Domestic Relations. Alicia Herrick, Public Health, and Alicia is not with us. Sheila Harvey, Tax Office. Sheila Harvey.
Thank you, Larry.
Dr. Susan Howe, Medical Examiner. He's not with us either. Nicolette Janowski, Public Health. Mike Kellerman, CSCD. Karen Miller, Public Health. Mark Porter, District Attorney. I'll make 2 lines.
Yeah, come on.
Chris Robertson, County Clerk. Leticia Salinas, Resource Connection. Sherry Sala, Information Technology. Andrea Shelton, Juvenile Services. Rona Wiedrin, District Attorney. Wederen, sorry. He's not with us. Tina Wilson, Precinct 1. And this is the 2010
Okay, I'm not good at this. That makes me feel so much better. Does it?
Judge, while all this picture taking is going on, let me comment that it makes me proud to see so many of the county staff engaged in improving their leadership skills, and it's one of the best investments that we make as commissioners is to try to grow up our own leaders. So I appreciate all of you for your strong participation in this program, and we look forward to your exercising your newly learned leadership skills on behalf of the people of Tarrant County.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Go Frogs. Go Frogs.
Oh, that's okay. No,
Brownwood, Lockhart, Bridgeport.
And Lockhart.
Lockhart.
Yeah, Midlothian.
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 I would like to have a motion to receive and file the recognition for our leadership program.
So move.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, there's one more thing that I would like to bring to the court's attention, and And in fact, I asked that we adjourn in honor of Lonnell Cooper, who was the first constable for Precinct 8, the first African-American constable in Tarrant County, and the first African-American police officer with the city of Fort Worth. He passed away yesterday, I believe. He leaves a great legacy and a loving family and many friends who will honor and treasure his memory.
Okay, well, please do that. Please note that for our records. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 3 additional items for action this morning. The first one, we're requesting that the court unanimously approve a resolution in support of HDR 56, which would restrict the power of the legislature to mandate requirements upon certain local governments. You might have read in the paper that there's an effort by the legislature to restrict unfunded mandates to the counties and the cities. And what this particular resolution would do would support that effort to constitutionally ban unfunded mandates.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item 2, we're requesting that the court consider and approve an exception to the county's travel policy as it relates to AgriLife Extension Service. This would allow the extension agent to attend a conference which is held in Allen, Texas.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, on item number 3, we're again requesting that the Commissioners Court consider and approve an exception to the county's travel policy as it relates to JP Precinct 7. This would allow the administrative clerk in that JP's office to attend a educational conference which will be held in Rockwall, Texas.
I move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell.
This morning, we're requesting that the court approve the auditor's office to reimburse eligible bank fees or charges incurred by jurors who were affected by the blocked juror services checking account, and then for the auditor to seek reimbursement from Chase. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. As the media reported, and you may be aware, there were some checks that were presented on Jury Services bank account back in November that were fraudulent. Last week, there was another check that was presented, and in an effort to safeguard the county's funds, Chase blocked the Jury Services account. The biggest problem was the county was not notified that the block was put on the account for that day. So there were certain jurors that attempted to cash their jury service check that were denied access to the funds because the account was blocked. In an effort to make sure that we can satisfy and make those jurors whole, if they present the original documentation from their bank via mail or in person, and we can work out any of the specifics for the individuals affected, and we think that's a small number. We think that we're looking at certainly 20, 30, maybe 40 people. That's an average of how many checks we have on a day that clears through that account, that we will then reimburse them for any fees or charges that they incurred related to the fact that the check from the county was not honored at the time. And we will then seek reimbursement from Chase, because Chase has agreed to make the county whole for any amount of monies that we pay to the jurors. And I would ask that when you approve this, if you do, that you would approve us paying these individuals without those payments appearing on the claims register, so that if someone takes the time to bring their information down here seeking reimbursement, that we can pay them at the time that they show up.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
I just want it to be perfectly clear to anybody who is the least bit interested that this was not our problem. It was Chase's problem. It was not a result of anything that we did or did not do. We didn't cause this, and we are as much victims as are the people whose checks were not honored by Chase Bank.
Any other comments or questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ray?
Thank you, Your Honor. Under the second item of the District Attorney's Office, we have with us today an agreed judgment settling this condemnation case for the amount of the award of the special commissioners. After the appeals, both sides decided to settle this, and it has been reviewed by the court before. We have the actual documents here for approval by the court, if we're authorized the county judge to sign it.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Rayburn?
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. My office recently received a local option liquor petition from residents of the city of Arlington. There were over 32,000 signatures on the petition. There were enough valid signatures on the petition to call the election. So we are requesting that the court receive and file the petition and order the election on May 14th. We're also asking the court to consider whether to require the city of Arlington to reimburse the county for the cost of the election. It has been the court's practice for the last couple of years to require those municipalities to reimburse us for the cost of holding the election.
Do you know that cost?
We're estimating the cost to be about $25,000.
This is a uniform election day,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so there will be other elections taking place at that time?
Yes, sir.
At the same time.
But it's pro rata share, right?
That's right.
Pro rata share.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I want to talk a little bit more about the cost from a standpoint. If there is a city election, which in Arlington there is, it certainly sounds like there's going to be, why would there be an extra cost associated with?
We would have a few extra expenses as far as advertising the election. The county has to file, print the notice of election in the newspaper, things like this. The maximum cost to the city would be if the city were able to cancel its own general election.
So are we authorizing the maximum cost, or are we authorizing the actual cost by this motion?
Well, it'll be a pro rata share. They won't pay a whole lot additional as long as they have their general election.
So the $25,000 number you gave earlier is already have you already calculated all of this?
That would be the maximum cost should the city not
Okay,
have
so
it.
that's the maximum.
Yes,
Again,
sir.
it's a maximum, not necessarily the,
That's the amount not to exceed.
okay.
Well, this,
Change my motion to that.
Well, it's possible the cost could exceed that amount. That's our estimated
I'm
cost.
just saying
Yes,
that
sir.
it would be up to a maximum of 25.
the election is to allow alcohol sales in South Arlington. And based on my experience and what I know about that community is it will be very good for economic development. It will not only be good for the city of Arlington, but be good for Tarrant County as well. So I do understand that we have a tradition of 2 years that the city would reimburse us for the election. But I would ask the court to kind of help out the city of Arlington as a gesture of goodwill to kind of split the cost. Is that possible?
I hate for us to start a precedent in that we've got 41 cities in this county that if we get into that particular habit, I'd be afraid that we're going to end up doing.
And also, Andy, you live there, but you already got some contested races, correct?
In Arlington?
It's not likely that Arlington's going to cancel their municipal election.
Well, we think there's going to be. Nobody has signed up.
I know, but there's numerous announced candidates
Right.
in similar, spot. So I think the likelihood of them having an election, which would bring the cost of this alcohol election in line.
It'd be down to marginal
Right.
cost.
It would be at the low end anyway.
But if we just leave it at the I think the way this is, help me understand, the way what have been approved and seconded right now basically says that you're going to take the total cost and you're going to prorate it.
Yes, sir.
And your estimate is that that would not exceed $25,000, but regardless, it's going to be prorated. So the way the motion is set right now, the only way it might cost more than that would be if there are no contested races in Arlington, and if Arlington therefore cancels their city council elections.
Yes, sir.
But otherwise, I'd hate to go in there and put a $25,000 limit on that, and then for whatever reason, the city does end up coming back and canceling. Let's just leave it like we've got it and like we do it all the time, and that's on a prorated basis.
But let me be sure I'm following you. If I understand what you said, if Arlington doesn't have an election, it would be between 20 and 25,000.
That's our estimate right
That's
now.
your
Yes,
estimate.
sir.
If Arlington does have an election, it will be substantially lower.
Yes, sir.
No, substantially less.
Lower,
Lower.
less?
Lower. I thought you said more.
I'm sorry. No, I said lower. Which sounds like more. And rhymes with smaller. So,
It'll be a long day.
okay.
Keep telling him that over, would you, J.D.? Keep telling him that over, would you? We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn, get up here and save us quickly.
Move approval to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Receive and file personnel agenda. Any questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We have one additional item. We're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for CDC 2. The court reporter is leaving county service at the end of this month with 178 vacation hours. If approved, the impact to the general fund is approximately $7,600, excluding fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham? No, doesn't look like it.
I think he may still be snowbound in Chicago. Haven't heard from him. We have two items for your consideration this morning. The first item is RFP number 2011-024. This is for HIV oral health assessment survey for the Public Health Department. We're recommending award to New Solutions Incorporated, an amount of $30,000. And if approved, we're also seeking contract approval.
I've got a question about this that perhaps Ms. Brewer or Margie could best answer. Who is to be surveyed, and what information are you trying to glean from this survey?
Good morning, everybody.
Good
I have
morning.
a terrible cold, so I don't sound very good today. They're going to survey our three HSDA's health service delivery areas, Abilene, Wichita Falls, and the Fort Worth area. So our 38-county area. And what we'd like to learn is we have oral health providers in these counties now, in these areas now, but they don't provide specialty care. So we're going to be surveying.
You're talking about dental?
Dental, oral health, specialty care. And so we're trying to find out what options our clients or HIV-positive clients have for receiving indigent oral health care in these counties. And so they'll be doing a study to find out what specialty services are available, who takes Medicare, who takes Medicaid, who will do pro bono services in these 38 counties so that our folks can receive services above and beyond what Ryan White pays for.
Thank you. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Second item is for bid number 2011-040. This is the sale of recycled paper. We're recommending the award to the high bidder, Evergreen Fiber Sales, for the mixed ledger and paper and recycling solutions for the OCC cardboard.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff's Department.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. We have before you a proposed special event agreement that we're recommending approving. We were approached by the Arlington Police Department with this agreement to ensure that they have adequate security at large special events, particularly at Cowboys Stadium. This agreement is separate apart and from any emergency mutual aid agreement or any other kind of task force agreement, and simply requires or does not require, we are simply agreeing that if we are approached by them to provide additional security where they are unable to fill all of their slots, that we will consider sending deputies to that location, and there are provisions in here for reimbursement.
At what amount of reimbursement?
It would be the
It'll be actual costs to the county.
Actual cost?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have any agreements like this with any other cities, do we?
Not to my knowledge.
Good morning.
Commissioners, Judge, we're requesting that the court approve an order to abandon, vacate, and close a surplus part of Old Duncan Prairie Road from January Road to the existing intersection of Duncan Prairie Road, which is no longer needed for highway purposes. This is a section of roadway that is between Grand Prairie and Arlington. It is in unincorporated Tarrant County, and the city of Grand Prairie has agreed to annex the roadway once we abandon this short section, which is unpaved. It's just an earthen piece of ground. And so once we abandon it, then the city will annex the area and assume the maintenance of the paved section of Old Duncan Prairie Road.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I've actually seen that on the road.
Commissioner Brooks, under Commissioners and Judges.
I move approval of item 8N, 1A and B, an interlocal agreement with the city of Everman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Wynn.
I move for approval of item N2, A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. While we're in this particular area, one of the things I'd like for us to consider, maybe put on an agenda to talk about a little bit more fully in the future, would be a strategic planning session sometime March or April, so prior to the time when all the budgets are due. So again, we can meet with maybe the elected officials and the department heads to really talk about what we see coming up in the upcoming budget and trying to set some priorities as far as where we're going with regards to different items.
Is that going to be a work session item, or are you going to have a special meeting for that?
Probably a special meeting.
I think that'd be best.
And again, hopefully that we would spend maybe the first part of that meeting, for however long it is really sitting down and brainstorming about priorities and talking with all of the different elected officials, having the department heads there too, and then using that to begin to set our priorities as we
for the budget process.
For the budget process as we go forward.
I think that's a good idea.
So we'll try to get that, look at everybody's calendars and try to get that set in the next, somewhere in the March, April timeframe. And also, I know we've got legislative issues coming up in just a minute.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, well, I'll just wait till we get to that one thing. Are there any appointments today? I would like to recommend that we place Commissioner Brooks on our employee Benefit Cooperative, our PEBC board. Marty was on that, and Commissioner Brooks, I think, has expressed some interest. And
I would second that.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have several items to bring to the court this morning. The first one, we're going to move to item B, which is a presentation on the JFK Tribute Project. Mr. Taft is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge Whitley. Good morning.
Good morning.
In the spirit of a picture paints 1,000 words, I'd like to start with the video that we've been showing around town as part of our fundraising effort for the story you're about to hear. This really summarizes everything. I think it'll give you and everyone here in the chamber a good understanding of where we've been and where we're going.
You got the popcorn? We're going to turn out the lights.
On the afternoon of November 22nd, 1963, the news of President John F. Kennedy's assassination shocked the world. It's one of the most tragic chapters in our nation's history. But few people know the whole story of that day. The story of John F. Kennedy's final night and triumphant morning in Fort Worth. President Kennedy spent the evening of November 21st in a suite at the Hotel Texas in downtown Fort Worth. He and his wife Jackie were surrounded by an art exhibit created especially for them, including masterpieces by Picasso, Van Gogh, and Monet. The next morning, despite a cold rain, a large and enthusiastic crowd gathered outside to catch a glimpse of the young popular president. Over the objections of the Secret Service, President Kennedy made an unscheduled speech and thanked the crowd for braving the elements. There are no faint hearts in Fort Worth, he began. He spoke of Fort Worth's key role in aviation history, of the ambitious space program, and of the future he saw for America's leadership. The crowd loved it, and the people closest to the president reached out to shake his hands. The president left the group outside and delivered his remarks planned for the chamber breakfast inside the hotel. Later, as the motorcade left the hotel and headed down Main Street, the clouds had departed and the sun was shining brightly. At that moment, Fort Worth reveled in the president's visit, inspired by his words and proud to host him. But the day that began with such high hope and optimism ended in tragedy.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
And the story of his visit to Fort Worth has been lost to history. Now, Fort Worth leaders are working hard to bring this compelling story to light by creating a powerful tribute to the man, the era, and the city. The John F. Kennedy Tribute will be located in General Worth Square, the site where he delivered his public speech that morning. The city of Fort Worth has allocated funds for base park improvements, and the 8-foot bronze sculpture of President Kennedy, commissioned with private donations, is complete and ready to be installed. Texas artist Lawrence Ludke, a National Sculpture Society Fellow, created this beautiful work of art. Conceptual plans for the tribute are complete. This will be a place for contemplation and education, a place where visitors can view the Kennedy sculpture, see images of his visit, read inscriptions describing his stay in Fort Worth, and access both speeches he made that day. But to make the tribute a reality, we need you. Help us tell the story of the president's visit to Fort Worth, and a day that began with hope and optimism. A day the world will never forget. Help tell the story of November 22nd, 1963, in Fort Worth, Texas.
As you can see, that's an emotional story. It's very much a Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and a Texas story. It's a sensitive one, too. We're treading on a date that a lot of people have very powerful feelings around, those who are here. And this story's been a long time in coming. It started about, in 1997 with a group from Dallas who came to our area and started this initiative. And for a variety of reasons, it went into hibernation for about 10 years. And about 2 years ago, Downtown Fort Worth, Inc. created a public art plan for downtown to direct our efforts in that regard. And the John F. Kennedy sculpture was identified as a project undone, unfinished. We identified that as a top priority, and Shirley and Taylor Gandy, who are here today in the court, stepped up to the plate. Identified this as a project that they wanted to be a part of, and thanks to their leadership and their generosity, we have a finished sculpture, which I will talk about in a moment, but we are here today, thanks to them, moving this project forward. The project process, and I'm supposed to do that. Okay, yeah. The project process began in 2009 when the city approved $250,000 to improve the park, and we started fine-tuning the JFK tribute concept in the summer of the next year, in 2010. Randy Sorensen from Jacobs is our designer, and Randy is also here. We're also fortunate in being able to put together a steering committee that included our local public art professionals, Martha Peters and Jenny Kahn. We are also honored to have representatives from the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History help guide our history components and helping to tell the story in a professional way. We are also honored to have former House Speaker Jim Wright and former Mayor Bob Boland on the steering committee as well. Our quiet fundraising efforts began late last year, and we're happy to announce today that as of today, when we're going public with our fundraising efforts, we have raised $500,000, half of the construction total that we will need to start construction. We will raise another $500,000 as a maintenance reserve to make sure that the tribute is maintained and repaired in a timely fashion, and to keep it as beautiful going forward as it is the day that it opens. On May 29th this year, subject to successful fundraising efforts, we plan to have our groundbreaking ceremony, and we hope to have our ribbon-cutting ceremony on May 29th of 2012, May 29th being President Kennedy's birthday, and the date that the Kennedy family prefers to have recognition of the President happen. As you saw in the video, the sculpture is an 8-foot bronze. It's by Texas artist Lawrence Ludke. It is standing today in Santa Fe, New Mexico, at the Shadoni Foundry, waiting to come here to Fort Worth. It was funded entirely through private donations, and here again, I'd like to mention the generosity and the leadership of the Gandys and the Fort Worth Hilton Hotel ownership. As I mentioned before, the park is in need of fundamental repairs. For those of you who have been in General Worth Square recently, especially at night, you may have noticed that very few, if any, of the lights are working. And so that's going to be our first level of attack. We will make this park lighter at night. We're going to repair the irrigation, the landscaping, and some of the electrical components in the park, all geared toward increasing life safety and the appeal of the park both in the daytime and nighttime. We'll also remove some of the dated, heavy concrete furnishings and replace those with movable tables and chairs that, again, will make the park much more usable. The tribute location is immediately across 8th Street from the Hilton Hotel. Now, this is very close to where the President stood when he gave that impromptu outdoor address. He actually stood about 20 feet to the right. That site where he precisely stood is really inaccessible and inappropriate for the tribute because of how the garage under this site is situated. The tribute will bring the park to grade at the corner. We'll be removing some of the terraced planters there. It'll bring it to grade at the corner, opening the park at that corner, making it more approachable from the north and the south. Now, as seen from the other side of Main Street, you can see that the sculpture is framed by larger-than-life images taken here that day. Immediately behind the president is a water wall, which, when it's turned off for maintenance or any other reasons, will look like there's not supposed to be water there. When there is water there, it will obviously be a beautiful feature. To the left, as you look at the picture, on the left you can see a wall that appears to have writing on it, some lines. That will be in both English and Spanish, telling the story of the day and giving some historical context and understanding to those who come and visit the site in person. There will also be a website that picks up on the themes of the speeches and a mobile app that visitors can download to hear the speeches that he gave that day. The tribute will be fully accessible on 2 of the 3 portals. The seating area will be curved, creating a comfortable place for lectures, reflection, and tours. And the water wall, again, will be designed to be elegant both day and night. As you can see in the slide, we're removing a large portion of the terraced stairs that occupy the site where the tribute goes, and we are moving the grass into the tribute. The grass that you see on the right, most of that does not exist today, so we'll be wrapping the park into the tribute, creating a seamless transition between the tribute and the park itself. We'll also be adding some seating there on that curved bench. We want the tribute to be as beautiful at night as it is during the day, creating an elegant statement just outside of the convention center and adjacent to both 8th and 9th Street. Randy Sorensen is working with a lighting designer to make it as dramatic as possible, using low-energy LED elements to create recessed, glowing effects. These elements will be contained in removable panels that will be easily accessible, so as technology changes and bulbs need to be replaced, it'll be a simple matter of sliding those elements out and maintaining it properly. At night, currently, the park is very dark. It is a barrier between the convention center and the Omni and places south to places north. And once we are finished, both the park and the tribute will be a glowing gem right in the middle of downtown, creating a bridge between north and south. And I would submit to you that both the park and the tribute will become a new destination in Fort Worth and Tarrant County going forward. Today, again, we are going public with our fundraising campaign. We are telling the community about the project. Hopefully you saw the article in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram today. It's a very emotional topic. We recently visited with the representatives of the 6th Floor Museum in Dallas to talk about the story that we are telling, to share with them our tone, and to talk to them about how we're approaching it and to get their feedback on how this works with the story that they very appropriately tell in Dallas. I'm happy to announce that they were very pleased with the outreach. They were congratulatory on the tone, our focus on the President's life and on his visit here. We allow the rest of the story to be told by Dallas, and we tell the Fort Worth and Tarrant County story. Commissioner Brooks, thank you for your encouragement over the last couple of years. Judge Whitley, thank you for inviting us here. GK, thank you. We still have a lot of work to do, but based on the enthusiasm and the passion that we have seen from our donors so far and the people who have been involved in this project, we're confident in our ability to make it happen. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. We do have a brochure for you, and I will just leave copies with you. There's one other thing I'd like to share with you. Oh, yes. I thought you'd forget that and we'd keep it. Well, the last time I was here, I showed you the sculpture. I left it here. I can't leave this one here. This is an 18-inch version of the sculpture that will go in General Worth Square. Again, it was created by Texas sculptor Lawrence Ludke. He passed away shortly before it was cast into bronze. The 8-foot clay model of this sculpture stood in his studio for 10 years looking over his shoulder. He didn't know whether or not it would ever be finished. It's his last piece. Before he passed away, he knew that this was being commissioned to be cast into bronze. And so we are fortunate to have his last work here in Fort Worth. You've seen his work at Texas A&M. If you visited the Pentagon, he has work there, as well as the U.S. Air Force Academy. And this will be standing in JFK Plaza at General War Square, hopefully about a year from now.
And you had mentioned that you've raised $500,000 to date, that you're looking for an additional $500,000 for maintenance. What's the total amount of money you're trying to raise for the project?
Total project cost, including the park, is right at about $2 million. The sculpture is finished. The tribute piece that you see up there is, we think, at this stage in design, right at about $1 million. So we're $500,000 away from pulling the trigger on the construction. And then our ultimate goal would be to raise yet another $500,000 to create a very healthy maintenance reserve.
So you're about $1 million short right now?
That's right.
Okay.
At the end of the video, you saw some contact information. We have also launched a website today that has a giving opportunity on there, and that is jfktribute.com.
I'd like to thank you for this presentation and to thank the Gandhis for their outstanding leadership in getting this project off the ground and assembling those of us who are on the committee to make this thing happen. I can remember precisely where I was on December 22nd, 1963. I was in 9th grade at Morningside Junior High School. My parents had gone to the breakfast that morning and heard both the inside and the outside speeches. When word came over the public address system that the president had been shot, 14-year-olds react the way 14-year-olds tend to react. The only thing on my mind as president of the student council was, we need to lower the flag. Of course, the principal told me that I didn't have the authority to lower the flag. So at some point that did happen. But it is well past time that Fort Worth honored our part of this legacy. And I will be asking the court to consider ways that we can participate in this project.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I think you're right. This is, it is one of those events where you always remember where you were when you first heard news. So, Andy, thank you very much coming out today, and we will, as Commissioner Brooks indicated, consider this and see if we might not be able to help in some way.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Or okay. Thank you.
I was out of the 9th grade, though, when that happened.
I was in the 5th grade. Huh?
I wasn't born yet. I'm the baby of the court.
Yeah, I forgot that it was not, that I had enjoyed that position for a long time. Now I guess I'm not longer the baby, huh?
JD, you and me.
I was in Dallas that North Dallas.
Shirley and Taylor, we want to thank you for everything that you've done in this project also, and look forward to helping y'all with this. Thank you. Mr. Early is really going to be late on this one, is that?
Mr. Early.
Well, he was early. He showed up last week.
I know. We're going to need to. I have a feeling there's been a miscommunication with Mr. Early.
How are you?
Sounds like it. Okay, next.
If we could go to item C, this is a report by Texas AgriLife. It's a 2010 Extension Service Annual Report. Mr. Tarver, here to address the court.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the court.
I placed in front of you previously our 2011 calendar, which serves as our annual report for our accomplishments in the year of 2010. And also there's another brief report there, just a couple of things that will give you some information on our activities in 2010. But I'm pleased to be here today, and I thank you for your time. As we think about the education that our staff through Texas AgriLife Extension Service, through your Texas AgriLife Extension Service, that they provide in the community, it is just to accomplish that mission of providing education that can help people improve their quality of life. And I think that our staff is certainly dedicated. From the things that you'll read there, you'll see that they have a dedication in working with the people in Tarrant County in a variety of ways. And we have to be, these days, very innovative in our approaches because we are facing a lot of changes technologically. We are facing some changes in family lives that mean that people don't come out like they used to attend an evening program or can't come out in the morning. So we are having to look at ways that we can get the information that we have into people's hands that help them. First of all, I'd like to highlight our horticulture project, and I would be remiss if I didn't say right here that we have to appreciate the efforts of Ms. Judy Ketchum at the Resource Connection, because it has been her vision that has helped us establish this community garden there on the grounds of Resource Connection. It currently is about 2 acres, maybe a little bit over. Our master gardeners and our horticulture agent have worked very hard in designing that. They continue to add each year. Last year, most recently, the addition was a native grass plot, which is served as a demonstration to help people see what they might grow in their own landscapes. That doesn't require a lot of water. It's not cactus or rocks, but it is actually plants that do look beautiful and can help to conserve our natural resource. We also are very fortunate to have a number of partners that we work with at that community garden. Tarrant County Public Health, through their WIC program, have an herb program where they teach their clients how to grow herbs. Our master gardeners are very involved with that. Many of the clients do receive herbs, so this is all in an effort to help them reduce the fat and increase the flavor in their foods to help in meet the dietary guidelines. TCU has a number of departments, mainly nutritional sciences and their dietetics program. Their students go out there and they learn about gardening, they learn about how to teach adult learners, they learn about conserving and preserving our environment. Also, our Master Gardener course is taught at TCU as a graduate level course. That's over 60 hours of education that they provide for their students there. Senior Citizen Services, which has a group there that meets at the campus of Resource Connection. This past summer, we're able to have some raised gardens that they were able to plant and harvest vegetables from to help improve their diet. And then any of the overages from the garden are taken to the Tarrant Area Food Bank so they can distribute them through their food pantries. When we look at protecting our environment, a couple of main things that happened this past year. Of course, rainwater harvesting is an important topic these days as people are looking at ways to conserve our precious natural resource of water. And so over 488 individuals participated in classes where they either made a rain barrel and took it home, or they learned how to make a rain barrel so that they could go home and make one and begin to collect rainwater for their own landscapes and gardens. The Urban Stream Processes and Restoration Workshop is, there were 6 of those held in the past year, and those reached over 300 professionals. They were engineers, they were stormwater managers, municipal planners. The goal of this workshop was to help them see the natural processes of our streams here in Tarrant County, identify the way that urbanization destroys that through erosion, through flooding, and to identify ways that they could restore those streams, which in the long run will help to improve our water quality. Under the topic of strengthening our families, a unique event that our Family and Consumer Sciences agent put together, adopted from another state and kind of Texanized it, I suppose you could say, is Reality Store. This targeted teenage students, high school level, and it's a simulation event where they come in, they're given an income, they're given a family structure, they may be a single parent or a
nuclear family with 3 children, whatever the case may be, and then they have to take their funds, their salary for that month, and spend them wisely. They're required to pay for housing, they're required to pay for transportation, food, clothing for their children, child care. They also have to pay taxes, and they have to save some money as well. And at the end of the program, they all sit down and they discuss what they've learned. From the evaluations, 89% of those students that participate say that they see the way that their choices today can influence their future, meaning whether I stay in school, do I choose to go to college, am I looking at a trade school, but they do identify that, yes, they see that the choices that they make in their life today can impact their future. Under developing our youth, through our 4-H and Youth Development Program, community service is always something that our boys and girls are involved in. In the past couple of years, we've been taking part in an event called One Day 4-H, and it's across the state of Texas. Every 4-H club is involved in activities. This year in Tarrant County, we had 224 volunteers, those were adults and kids, who gave 691 hours on that one Saturday in October. And they did things such as visiting with our troops as they departed. They provided supplies to them as they departed for their service overseas. They collected food for food pantries and food banks. They collected supplies for pet shelters. They participated in local community beautification projects. So, as I said, they participate in activities throughout the year, but this was one big day that they participated. Our after-school program, our school and after-school programs tend to focus or continue to focus on bullying, anti-bullying actually, on character building, on natural resources, team building, conflict resolution, leadership, character education, and of course our nutrition education program that addresses childhood obesity. This past year, I'm pleased to say that we have 584 youth that are involved in our community clubs across Tarrant County. That's about 20 clubs throughout the county. We have about 150 adult volunteers that manage those clubs. In addition to that, we have 15,000 youth that are involved in our school and after-school programs. And I'm pleased to say that this past year we joined in partnership with the Generation Hope Laptop program, which is Commissioner Brooks' program, to train their instructors in some leadership activities that our program has, and so they'll be incorporating those this spring into their training. So I'll be pleased to have results of that later on in the spring to bring to you all. Of course, I do need to mention our Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show is coming up next month, and we'll have a number of 4-H youth involved in that.
No, but I will be calling names starting next Tuesday.
And that's always an exciting activity for our boys and girls. And of course, we see their pictures in the paper and with their livestock, but one of the main things they go away with from that project is the development of responsibility and leadership skills as well. So an important part of our 4-H projects. This last little slide is just a snapshot. I did notice I made a mistake. Individual contacts should be 43,000, but that just gives you an idea of the programs that our staff conducted this past year out in the field. The participants they reached nearing 100,000. Our individual contacts 177,000, and those are by way of phone, newsletters, office contacts, and site visits. And then we have 518 volunteers that are out there leading programs. So we had a great year. Again, as I wrap up, I say it's the commitment of our staff to helping educate the people that live in Tarrant County. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Jim Duff, who designs the calendar, puts that together for us each year, and Ms. Karen Beck in graphics that does the editing for us. So I thank you for your time. I would be glad to answer any questions, or if you feel that you need to contact me in the future, please do so.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Members of the Court, I'll be talking with you about both items D and E. The first one is the redistricting process. As you know, this is an event and an activity that we go through once every 10 years as it relates to the Commissioner's Court. We have been in, and what I'd like to do first is to give you basically a timeline and what we have on the redistricting process. So,
JD, he didn't want you to have one.
We've already worked.
Well, I've been through it a few times.
I'm sorry, I gave.
Thank you.
I do know how to count to 5 rather than 3.
Well, counting 5 is just overdoing it.
Not in my world. Anyway, as you can see, we are now at the very beginning of this. We've been having conversations with the law firm of Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, Acosta. This is a firm out of Austin that has assisted us in our redistricting for at least two of the last times.
Wasn't it Myra Daniels?
Myra
Yes.
McDaniel.
Yes.
McDaniels, and she passed
She
away.
passed away.
She's passed, but
We're going to miss her.
yes,
A lot.
yes.
And because of the pivotal role that Myra played in this process, I'd like to see us look at adding a component to our consulting operation that is sensitive to minority community concerns. And if you need somebody, if you need some names, I can give you some names who have been involved in redistricting for a long time and could add that point of view.
Well, are we ruling this company out that they don't have that?
I didn't say, I said add to, not replace.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Commissioner Brooks, if you could provide those names.
I will do
happy
that.
to.
But I do think we ought to look and see what Bickerstaff has to offer from that standpoint.
Yes, there is an advantage as it relates to at least having Bickerstaff and Heath as part of this team. And that's because they've already done this for us several times. The firm has the Tarrant County data loaded in their system, and they have our past maps in their system, and that could be a cost saver to the county if we would utilize this firm. Plus, this firm has been very successful, and if we need to add individuals to it, Commissioner Brooks, if you'll just give me those names.
I spoke with members of this firm and tried to get them to do what I'm asking the court to do, and their response to me was, well, if the court tells us to do it, we'll do it. In other words, they're not going to do anything unless we make them.
Okay.
I took that as a challenge, and so I will be trying to get the support of this court to make them.
Our goal is within several weeks to bring a contract to the court. We've also spoken with purchasing about this particular issue and how we handle this so that we conform with the various state statutes that will allow us to actually engage these as a professional service. And Mr. Beecham does not have any concerns on how we're going to be moving forward in this process. So what I wanted to do was to simply give you this timeline, tell you that redistricting is upon us, and it's something that we'll be engaged in over the next several weeks. Now, statutorily, we are mandated to do the redistricting of the 4 county commissioners. We've also talked about the issue of at least looking at the JP and Constable lines to see if there was a need to withdraw those. I will tell you that the major distinction, or there's 2 major distinctions between JP Constables and the commissioners. One is that redistricting with the JP and Constable is not mandatory, nor is it based on a one-man, one-vote concept. Only the 4 commissioners are based on the one-man, one-vote concept. And so that's the major difference. Also, it's the Commissioners Court actually can redistrict JPs and constables at any time.
And we can, and that is, so as we've heard, or at least as I've heard from the various JPs, and I know we invited, and I see several of the JPs and constables here today, that can also be along the lines of trying to distribute their volume of work.
That's correct.
As opposed to necessarily their population. And in some of the instances, especially where the truancy or some of the other issues have been, more of an impact, that may be something. And I guess as we do have constables and Russ, I see Russ back there, one of the JPs, would invite any thoughts or comments that they have with regards to, the possibility of looking at that and how strongly they feel about that.
And Your Honor, I had sent a notice out to the JPs and constables yesterday, but it was fairly late in the day. It was mid-afternoon. I believe that I copied each member on that. And in that email communication, I did tell both the JPs and the constables that this was just the beginning of the conversations, not the end of the conversations, and we would invite them to participate with us.
Now, what I would hope is that both from the constables and the JP's standpoint, that we ask them to comment with regards to the volume. Maybe they collectively meet together and discuss what their thoughts would be. Again, we do not have to do this at the same time. We can do it a year later or whatever, but if we're going to have bigger staff or whomever help us with that, then I think as we redraw those lines, whether it be along the lines of the volume or whatever, we could also look at what that does to the actual number of voters, because I don't think we want to significantly tilt one way or another the number of voters in one precinct versus another precinct for the JPs or the constables.
I know that in our area, and I see Russ here, and I know that we've got an area that's in Russ's precinct that would be much more convenient if it was in a precinct in Arlington. It's part of Arlington, and it's probably a problem for these people to go to court, have their people go to court up in Hurst or in Southland. And I know that's still one of your issues.
Come forward, yeah. Go ahead and come forward, please.
And it really doesn't have anything, I'm not sure it does anything with population but
if I may intrude real quick. The JPs and the constables have talked a little bit about it. We're really not wanting any kind of major changes done. A few little things here and there to try to better serve our communities. There is some sections of some precincts that probably need to move to others, and we'll be discussing that with whoever you have that's leading this. We understand that that the commissioner's precinct is the first priority. That's required by the laws, and we'd like to at the same time be a part of that to try to get a little bit of tweaking, if you will, on our precincts to accommodate some of the growth changes that we've had in the last 10 years off of that. And that's basically it.
Okay. Right now, GK, are the JPs and constables pretty well divided along population lines, or are they divided along, do we know what the voter breakout or the population breakout is?
Your Honor, I don't have that information at this time. It's been a while since we've redistricted JP and constables and with the new data.
If I may, right now the JP and constable precincts are nowhere even close to population. We have approximately 4 of the 8 precincts within and around the same voting population, and the other 4 are way out there one way or the other. But we're, like I said, we're really not looking at major changes as far as in demographics or geography-wise, just a few little changes here and there. But that would be at your decision.
Debbie, on the staffing deal, are the staff sizes approximately the same?
It really depends on their workload. So the answer is really no.
Okay. So right now we are basically staffing them based upon the volume and their force.
Correct.
That may very well be the way we would want to continue to do that. So we may decide not to do anything in that particular area. But I just know that there's been some talk by a couple about the volume that they've had and the effects that has on their offices and stuff. So we can look at that. Thank you. Thank you.
So anyway, to conclude this piece, we will be talking with court members. We'll also be bringing back some agreements within the next probably several weeks for the court to consider. We have funded the redistricting process in our current fiscal year. So funds are available as it relates to this, and we're well within the budgeted amount that we had anticipated. So you should expect us to have this as an ongoing item with probably action within about 2 weeks. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Okay. Shift folders real quick, and we could then go to the legislative piece. I'd like to talk a little bit. First of all, in your packet today, you have the memorandum from Mr. Mendez as it relates to what's been happening. You might have also seen the story in the Star-Telegram this morning as it relates to the Senate's version of the budget. It may be slightly less draconian, but it's still fairly draconian. I want to talk a little bit about what I'm handing out here. This is something that the CUC has put together. We received it yesterday from Mr. Mendez. You might have also received it. Basically what it talks about is it analyzes the House bill, which is House Bill 1, as it relates to budget cuts. And I'm not going to go through those right now because that's something that we'll have more discussions on a weekly basis. However, one of the things that I am going to do, unless I'm directed not to, I'm going to send this document to all of our elected officials and department heads, and with a statement that these are the cuts that the state proposes, and if in fact the state does make these cuts, and we need to know from those departments what that means to their departments, that the department should not automatically assume that the county is going to pick up the gap, the revenue gap that is caused by the state cutting these budgets.
What would be the effect, for instance, of eliminating state disaster funds?
I guess we pray for no hurricanes or disasters.
That would shift disaster relief to the federal government and to local government?
I would suppose I don't see...
Commissioner, let us come back with an answer on that, because
that's just a for instance. That's
right.
The first thing that jumped out at me.
Right. I mean, there are some things that are going to affect us directly. You know, we receive funding. It's not a significant amount of money, but for the lateral road and bridge fund, and that will go away, according to this.
How much was that? Do we know? And we're getting into
it wasn't really that much, but it was it was probably less than $50,000. But the deal is,
well, it looks like, I mean, one of the things that I look at is the grants for indigent defense. I sat on that board, and the thing about that is they're saying we're going to cut that by 15%. Those fees are dedicated to indigent defense. So in effect, where they're talking about dropping that by $4 million. They can't spend it for anything but that. The money's still coming in. So like they were going to do the last time, that money's set in a bank account for about 2 years before they realized they couldn't spend it on anything else, and they gave it back to us. So that's the thing, that it's basically going to take away our ability to distribute it to the local government at a time when they need it, and then they'll be able to give it. Eventually they'll figure out that they can't do anything with it and give it back to us. But you're right, we need to go through each one of these items, figure out, another one on here, it looks like, would be the auto task force. It looks like that funding for that may be going away totally if you assume, which could be dangerous, that, where was that particular one?
I mean, each one of these, there are significant cuts in each one of these categories. And the impact of the county, our county, may be small in some cases, but in other cases, like what the state is anticipating with MHMR funding, the fact that there is a proposal to cut Medicaid payments by 10% will have a significant impact on our hospitals.
And the proposal to cut state funds for county indigent health care services by 53%.
Yes.
The one I was referring to was the bottom of the, next to the last page, eliminates auto burglary and theft grants. Now, say again? So that's $1 million, and I'm assuming that may go toward funding some funds going to our auto theft task force?
Yes.
Our auto theft task force receives money.
Come up here where we can all hear what you're saying.
And so, as you can tell, we're going to have a significant impact on the county on this. I think the best way to do this is to send this out to the department heads and elected officials, let them review it, and then come back and we'll keep this as a standing item. We can discuss it every week. We'll have a little more information by the time we get back next week, and hopefully we'll garner more and more information. And Debbie, what you were saying was that that is $1 million on the auto theft task force that we get from that particular grant.
And so what's the total budget on that, Debbie, the auto theft task force? Do you know?
It's $1.1 million. And we pay about $30,000 a year as part of a voluntary match for them. But again, the auto theft task force funds come from a dedicated fee.
Okay, so let's just take this, and this is the kind of the thing that I want everybody here to kind of hear and understand. So we've got a task force that's $1.1 million budget. The state is fixing to eliminate $1 million for that. And either we've got to absorb that or the program has to go away. Now, even though it's a dedicated fee that we're paying that, quote unquote, really can't be spent for anything else, they may hold that money back and we may end up having to eliminate that program, or we're going to have to come out of our reserve funds in order to keep that program going. And that's just one of several programs that we may go on that. So I think we've got to let everybody know this as quickly as possible so that it's not just maybe the five of us up here talking with our state folks about the importance of that, but it may be the sheriff's department, the DA's department, and everybody better be saying that, you know, I, for one, right now don't see how Tarrant County is going to be able to fill that gap out of our general reserve funds.
And that's just one small part of the cuts they're making.
That's just one small part. That's $1 million out of what is really billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, you know, last year we spent extra money, I think, on this auto task force, or we had somebody come in 1 or 2 budget sessions ago to talk about how important it was that we keep that one going.
There's I think it's 20% volunteer match that we have, that we pay. But, you know, it's not just Tarrant County's piece. There are municipalities place, and DPS, they place officers in this task force, and this money is funded through basically a fee on your and my auto insurance. It's not something that's a tax revenue. It's funded.
So is that $1.1 million budget, is that exclusive of the folks that we may have dedicated to that?
No, the unit as itself receives $1 million, but in that unit there's more than just Tarrant County officers. There are Fort Worth officers, Arlington officers, some officers from the other cities,
so
and
does
DPS.
that $1.1 million go to reimburse each one of those entities for the officers they have in there? I don't think so.
It's not going to be enough to do that.
So I guess, so that's what I'm saying. So if that were to go away, then in effect, those officers who are in that are going to go back to their entities and they will be, okay.
There's a small core staff, administrative staff.
Similarly, if you look at Medicaid, the vast majority of the money that goes to the federal government to draw down federal Medicaid dollars comes from the 9 largest hospital districts in the state of Texas. Does not come from the state.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out, how they're cutting, if what they're cutting there is our money, how they're going to
Yeah, the state has very little skin in that game.
Okay, those are the kind of things that, if that Medicare cuts they're talking about, is that state money, or are they assuming that they're going to stop us from sending our money?
No, I believe that is the state portion of Medicaid. Remember, Medicaid is a combined funding between the federal government and the state government, so they are anticipating cutting the amount that they have to put in.
Well, like Commissioner Brooks said, I didn't think they were putting that much money in the first place.
I believe they do put in a substantial amount for Medicaid. We'll get that number for you.
As quickly as we can, I'd really like for us to begin to make everybody aware of what may be happening in their particular areas if this passes.
We'll send this out today, but what I wanted to do was to bring it to court first, to make sure that you all were aware that we were going to be sending this out. Also, like both the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor have said, this is a beginning, and this is just the straw dog that everyone needs to kick around. And there's going to be various modifications on this budget before they pass, but in order for us to have input, we need to know what all these changes are going to do to impact us, and we need to carry that message to Austin.
Well, somebody needs to do the math on that.
Yeah. So we'll be sending this out to all the department heads and elected officials this afternoon. As I stated earlier, Mr. Mendez has gone ahead and given us another memo as far as the legislative issues. Also, just for whatever it's worth, once again, the Lieutenant Governor and the Senate's version of the budget is just a little bit less draconian, but it's still very, very substantial compared to the House. I'd be more than happy to try to answer any questions the court might have on these issues. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's all we have at this time.
We will now proceed, Commissioner Court will now proceed from our open session and proceed to our closed session to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072. Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Under item E1 of the DA's office, requesting authorization for the DA's office to intervene on behalf of the county in this lawsuit to protect our interest.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. There being no further business, we will now adjourn in memory of Lionel Cooper.